Okay, so now what I wanted to talk about was the content was validated learning and experimenting within the context of the lean startup. So validated learning is not after the fact rationalization of why something didn't work. Rather, it's the process of finding truths about a startup's present and future market prospects. So what does this mean? Basically, a lot of times when something doesn't work out the way you thought, people say, "Well, I learned a lot from that." But that's not validated learning. Validated learning is learning that basically has a point. You learn information that you can then use to create a successful product. In the case of IMVU, one of the most valuable things that they learned is that they knew that they had a sense and a vision of the avatars and 3D avatars and how it would work with instant messaging. The one thing they didn't realize is that customers just wanted to play with the avatars and they didn't want to use the avatars in their current instant messaging and with their current list of contacts. Instead, the customers wanted to make new friends online. So while their vision was mostly right on, one of the things that they learned through basically bringing customers in and talking with them and having them try out the avatars is that people, after creating their own avatar, they didn't want to interact with their own friends because they didn't know if it would be cool. Instead, they wanted to go out and meet new people with their new avatars and kind of create their own fantasy world rather than the regular instant messenger where it's based on reality. So this was unexpected for Eric Ries, and they'd spent the past 6 months developing plugins so that their avatars would work with all the different instant messengers. So it was a huge, painful way to learn. It cost a lot in terms of time. And he even wondered whether he would have been better off just sitting on the beach for 6 months rather than developing his avatars with instant messenger plugins. So it was a pretty important learning experience for him. But it was validated learning because then he knew that all he needed to do was to focus on creating really cool avatars and then creating an instant messaging platform that was just for the IMVU network. And so basically what you could do is they created a function called Chat Now where you could go and then chat with people who happened to be online at that moment. And then people were making new friends, which they thought was cool, which the target market thought was really cool. And it tended to be younger people, like teenagers that were more interested in this avatars. So if he would have learned that it didn't work and then he would have said, okay, let's stop from there, that wouldn't have been validated learning. Instead, what he did is he was able to take that information and then create a better product. Next, I want to talk about experimenting. This is another aspect that's huge for the lean startup method. In the case of IMVU that I just mentioned, they were basically experimenting with their customers and launching the avatars and the software and then making tons of improvements right away once they got feedback from their customers. But I want to give another example it is also in e-commerce, but it's with a physical product, and that's Zappos. So Zappos had a huge vision that they wanted to achieve, and so he had the guy that was the founder, Nick Swinmurn. He he wanted there to be a central place where you could go to buy shoes online, and people weren't sure whether people would buy shoes online. And so instead of creating like a huge warehouse and distribution system, similar to like what Pets.com did in 1999 and 2000 in the early days of e-commerce, Nick basically decided, well, all I'm going to do is I'm going to create a small experiment to see if people actually will buy shoes online. So all he did was go around to shoe stores in the area and take pictures of the shoes and post them online, and then see if people actually would buy the shoes. And so he went around and made deals with various shoe stores in the area and said, "Hey, is it okay if I take pictures of your shoes? And then if I sell the shoes, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and then give you full price for the shoes." So he went ahead and did this, and he found out that it worked. And another thing that he found out, and one of the things about Zappos.com, is that they're huge into customer service. They just have the most personalized customer service, and you really need that when you buy shoes, because if they don't fit, you have to have the confidence in the company that they're going to be able to process that return. So that was another huge part of finding out whether Zappos was going to work or not. So from this little experiment that he did, he was then able to turn this into a $1.2 billion company in 2009 that Amazon.com then purchased. And just to give you an idea, the company's still experimenting to this day. They worked on an idea where they would have no hierarchy in their stores or in their headquarters. Their headquarters is in Las Vegas, and they worked to basically make it like a real flat structure where there weren't any managers. And that sort of worked for a while, but then as the company got larger, it didn't work as well. So they're switching back to kind of an older way of doing it. So experimenting is basically in the DNA of Zappos. That's how they started. That was their founding story, is that the entrepreneur basically said, "I want to try this and see if this works." So being willing to experiment and try new things with your product is, you just learn so much more, because you learn, rather than doing like traditional market research, you're actually observing real customer behavior and not asking hypothetical questions. And you learn about real customers' needs. For example, should the pricing be discounted or not? Or what are the customer's perceptions of the product? And then when the customer behaved in unexpected ways, they would know how to handle it because they'd already worked with actual customers. So it seems really simple, right? But it's actually not as intuitive as you would think. When it comes to starting a business, a lot of people basically execute their plan precisely and perfectly, but then that plan fails, and they've invested so much resources into it, as in the case of Pets.com, where they had purchased warehouses and trucks and had a whole infrastructure built out before they even launched their website. That just doesn't work. It didn't work in the case of Pets.com, but in the case of Zappos, it did work because they started out with an experiment, found out exactly what the customer needed, and found out if the customer liked their vision, and then from there moved on to, create new interesting things. So I have a picture here of Zappos.com's page. So this is their homepage, and you can see they organize products by brands. If you click on D, here's all the brands with D. So you can shop by brands. You can shop by what's on sale. And then they moved on and they sell all kinds of things besides just shoes now. So they've really come to be, you can buy clothing, more stuff. So they've really expanded from their days and built on their identity as having great customer service to something that's a pretty vibrant e-commerce company. And it was all based on experimenting as opposed to just creating a plan and then executing a plan. This way worked much better for them. So that's just a little bit more about about the lean startup method and how powerful it can be. And if you're interested in learning more, you can check out Zappos.com's website. Look at Zappos. I think that the founder had written a book as well about the company that you can learn more about and see how they started and all the different things they tried. It's a really interesting company. They do a lot for the city of Las Vegas. Downtown Las Vegas was getting kind of run down. It's not where the strip is. It's another area of town. And Zappos has done quite a bit to kind of bring back the center of the city and kind of reinvigorate that area. So, a pretty interesting company. And it all started basically from a simple experiment. So, you can start with something little and move on to something huge. Well, that's it for the Lean Startup. Hope you found that interesting.